Okay, so for this activity, the directions are going to be delivered through this video because I just think it's easier to explain to you exactly what you're going to need to do. First of all, down here at the bottom, you see 4 worksheets. Each of these contains one or more charts that we are going to create using the data that is on the same worksheet. Now, when you look at this, you're not going to see this chart. You're going to see this worksheet without any of the charts. So again, you're getting this for the purpose of explanation. So what you're going to have to do, first of all, on this one, you're going to have to select all of the data that you see here. And when you do so, then you're going to insert a new chart. And this chart is a column chart. So you will go to Insert and then Column and select 2D column or a clustered column. And it's going to create a chart. Now, if you look at this chart and compare it to this chart, you'll notice some of the differences that you may or may not have to make happen. Now, the first thing that we want to do is I want to come over here and click this Format button because that's going to open up the Format pane, and it's going to make it easier, I think, to edit this chart that you're going to create. You'll notice over here under the chart title, you can click on that and change your chart title right here by software usage by department. And you can even come in and change the font and the font size and the colors. You can experiment with that a little bit. Notice how on this chart the legend is over here to the right, where over here the legend is at the bottom. So you're going to need to move the legend to the right. And also, one thing you may have to do is, depending upon when you create your chart, it may present your data like this, so that it takes the data and it first displays it by the software type, and then it may make it by department. So you may have to click Switch Row or Column Data. All right. So if you look at the colors of the columns that are in this chart, you can come down here and you can go to each individual series and change those. So Microsoft Excel, the color that is associated with Microsoft Excel is kind of a dark green. So what you could do is you could come over here and change the fill for Excel to a shade of dark green, and when you do that, it's going to change it up here as well. So then you would do the same thing for the other software programs. Microsoft Word is commonly associated with the color blue. PowerPoint is orange. The purple is Microsoft Access, and there is a dark green that is associated with Publisher. So you can come under each of these series and change the color the way you did here with Excel. And also notice over here that this chart, it has, if you come up over here under the, and let me minimize this to make it a little bit easier to see all this. We've got the legend again. You can come over here and determine the position of the legend, which I've indicated it needs to be at the right. And you could even change the font of the legend. And you could do some other things to it. Then down here, you've got a, we're not going to be doing anything over here with the horizontal axis or the vertical axis in terms of changing any of these figures on this particular chart, so you can leave that alone. Now, some other things you're going to need to do to this chart is you come over here and under this labels group and under the axis group, there's a few more things you can do to the chart. We've already done chart title, and then under axis titles, you'll notice that we have a primary horizontal axis and a primary vertical axis title, and those would be number of users. That would be your vertical axis, and your horizontal axis would be departments. So you would have to go and put in the correct axis, and you see how you've got different ways of how you can rotate. I believe on mine I used a rotated title for the vertical axis. There's nothing to rotate on the horizontal. It's just going to go left or right. So you're going to need to do that. And then we've already talked about the legend. And then data labels. This one we are not displaying any data labels, so that's okay. And this one does not have a data table. And the axes themselves, we can actually skip that one on this particular one. But then under grid lines, we have primary horizontal and primary vertical major grid lines. So for both of these, you're going to need to add the major grid lines for the primary and the horizontal. That is what gives you these lines that you see up here, which helps you to more easily identify which of the what numbers that these are closer to. So you will need to add those. So for this next one, if you'll come to the white worksheet, it's labeled D3. You're going to select this data up here, and you're going to create two charts. Actually going to create three charts. One chart is going to be a column chart, just like we just did, and there's not many changes to that one. Again, when you click on this chart, if you'll come over here under Chart Tools and click the chart, and make sure your format has been clicked, which will display the various parts of this. Of the chart, displays the chart elements that are on this one, and you're going to want to make sure that you have, again, pretty much like the last one, you're going to come over here, you're going to work on the chart title, and you can edit the chart title for each of them as you see the title up here. And for each of these, you can, for this one, you don't have to change any of the colors. You've got axis titles as well. Number of events is your vertical axis title. Types of events is your horizontal axis title. Again, your legend is over here on the right, so you'll want to move that. This one, again, does not have any data labels, the one we're looking at. So that needs to be a column chart, and again, it's very similar to the last one. I only have major horizontal grid lines displayed, so you would not have to change any of those. Now, down here at the bottom, you have a line chart with markers. So basically, you're just going to create a second chart, and you're going to have a line chart with markers. And you could, on this chart, go in and change at least one of the default colors. I think for mine, I made this one right here orange for year 4. And it does have an horizontal axis title, and there's no vertical axis title on this one. Then over here you have a pie chart. So on this one, you have to look at the chart title. A pie chart only contains one set of data. And in this case, the data is for year 1. So you're going to have to select the cells A1 through B6, and then you're going to insert your chart. And we have no data labels to this and no other changes to this. So basically, when you click the Insert Chart button, you're done with this one. So again, this one should have 3 charts on it. The third activity, the blue one down here, I had to modify this activity a little bit to make it so that you could do both of these charts. First of all, this chart up here, this first one, you see it's got a chart title, and once you select all of the cells, it's going to be as part of the chart. And again, in this chart, you do not select any of these cells that contain totals. You only want the individual pieces of data. So you'll select A5 to E10, and then you'll go to Insert the Chart. And I do on this one have minor horizontal grid lines displayed. That's what all of these really light colored thin lines are. That helps you to even better to read what numbers are on here. Again, the legend is out to the right. You can change any of these colors as desired. You could come over here and change the, for example, Series Quarter 2. You could come over here, change the fill color, make it whatever color that you want. And then down here, there's no, if you'll look, there's no labels on here. There's no data labels on this one. no axis titles, nothing of that nature. And you can experiment with that, and you can add them in if you like. And then down here you have a pie chart, and this is the one where I kind of had to change the data in order to make it make sense for the activity. I actually had to move the total sales. Originally the totals were to the right of this data, but I had to move it over here to make it so that all of these sales could be selected using the Excel online. And anyway, what you're going to do is you're going to create a pie chart, and you are on this one. You're going to have to, again, you're going to have to click on this chart. And notice how on a pie chart, some of these options are not even available because this is a different type of chart. Not all of these are going to be available to you based upon the type of chart that you've got. So you do have a chart title, which is total sales. You can edit it under here, or you can come over here and edit it under this format pane. You do have a legend, which is to the right. You do have data labels, which are, I selected best fit. That's probably the one that you would want to pick. And again, there's not a lot that you can format on a pie chart because, again, it's just a different type of chart. So you're going to want to do that for this one, and you can still experiment by coming in, and I think you could come in and change the colors of these. Let's see, maybe you can't. Well, automatically it gives you the option to vary colors by slice, but it really doesn't give you the option to go in and change anything else. Now, by the way, under the data labels on this one, we do have data labels on this one, and generally a pie chart, you would typically show a percentage and not necessarily a value. So I would want you to definitely add percentage to that. And then the other thing is, for the percentage, you would have to change the format for each. Now, I'm going to remove the value formatting on this. And the formatting for this is accounting. Well, if you want to see the percentage, you want a percentage and not accounting. So you would have to come over here and select percentage, and then you would see the percentage on here. And again, for a pie chart, that is typically what you want, okay, is you want to see the percentages. So make sure that you do that. And the final activity here is if you click on this orange worksheet tab, I've made a couple of changes to this one. And here I experimented more with changing the chart title, the font size, and whatnot. This chart right here is based upon your circulation expenses, which is in these cells right here. And didn't make too many changes to them. And by the way, the reason that the data labels here are labeled, or the reason they're slanted, is because the chart itself is too narrow to have the text go straight out left or right, so it slants it automatically. If you make this wider, then that chart would be big enough that the text could just go left or right. Notice on this one we do have a chart, we have an axis title. So again, you could come up under here under chart tools, you have an axis title for the for this one. On this one, you do not have an axis title. It's assumed that this is going to be monetary figures. And again, on this one, we did change the font and the font size, and even I think the font color. And then for this chart right here, again, this is a pie chart. So you're going to use this same data down here to create this chart. So you'll select those cells, you'll create a pie chart. And again, you do have data labels. And on this particular pie chart, you could leave it as numerical. I don't want to do that on a pie chart, so you'd have to come over here and go under the series and go under the data labels. And again, change the value to a percentage. And then when you do that, you're going to have to change the number format to percentage as well. Because again, on a pie chart, you would typically want to know what the percentage is of each part in relation to the whole. So, and again, you can kind of experiment with the font size on this. If I were to make this, change it from 9 to 12, then you would see how all this gets bigger, which if you did that, then you might want to make the chart a little bit bigger, and you can kind of make things bigger, make it easier to read. So again, purpose of this activity is just to give you some additional practice working with charts. And if you have any questions about this, please remember yours does not necessarily have to look 100% like mine. I just want to be able to look at this and know that you know how to create and modify a chart using Excel Online. And again, the more changes that you make to your charts, the more confident I am that you really and truly know how to use these options when creating a chart. Please ask me if you have any questions.